disclose to the,
That's absolutely, because in the seller's disclosure it says, and if any inspections are in the last 4 years, it has to be disclosed, and then you can point out the repairs have been repaired just by putting on the side of there, repaired, and so on.
And in theory, I mean, yeah, it's a great idea, but I really haven't come across any buyers that would expect it.
Any sellers that want to do that.
They don't want to spend money.
Right, I understand
that. Another question would be, is that say they found missing GFIs.
Right.
Do they have to produce proof that a licensed electrician installed?
Yes.
They install them themselves.
That's a good question.
As an example.
Right, and so now I know that in Missouri City they used to have flat work certifications and other inspections that were made on the inspection report, and the Missouri City would dictate to the seller that if you don't make these repairs, we won't transfer utilities to the buyer.
But they don't go that far. Say you have a leaky air duct, for example, you want to take it up yourself, instead of calling an AC company to come in and do it for $200.
That's right. That's why you have another inspector to come in there and say, well, you did it wrong, or you didn't install your GFIs wrong. So if I was making repairs from the inspection report, if it's certain things that I could do, I would do them, and then I hire professionals to do. And it's
buyer take care of it.
Right. And I've had a situation where I was selling a house over in Lakes of Brightwater, and the listing agent slash seller says, oh, I appreciate the offer. We've all agreed to everything, but the seller's not going to take your option. So I said, okay, what do you want to do? And he says, well, here's 3 inspection reports. She's already gone through this before. And these are the things that we repaired, and these are the things we're not going to repair, and we're selling the property for X dollars as is. So the buyer's sitting there, and I have a copy of I have the check, and I have the earnest money, the option check and the earnest money. And I told the buyer, I says, well, they don't want to give you the unrestricted right to terminate. They've disclosed that they have inspection report, and they've disclosed what they're going to do and what they've done. And anything else, you're going to have to do these items after closing, or before, but mostly after. Do you want to buy the house in its present condition? And they said yes. So I got the option money and ripped it in half and gave it to the buyer and gave the earnest money to the listing agent. We went on and bought the property. So you don't have to give option to sell the property. Okay, and also when you're listing a property, the reason why I got this downspout and splash guards is because a lot of times, a lot of things go on inspection reports that you could, you can do these things yourself. If there's no splash guard, if there's no downspouts, the seller can.
As agents, I mean, we should be able to. I mean, we don't want to get too technical, for obvious reasons. But I mean, if we've been to enough houses, we have enough experience to know what looks right and what doesn't look. I mean, we're not doing the sellers any favors by not pointing things out, such as this.
I understand that.
Yeah, I mean,
I understand that. And I just went over to talk to someone yesterday about his property. I said, well, you got some nice downspouts, but where are the splash guards? And the splash guards keep the water away from the foundation, even on your own house. I bet you can walk around your house today, and you may not have a splash guard. You'll have the downspouts, but they're real cheap. You just go to the Home Depot and buy some. And these are the things you can point out. Now, if you're going to get a listing on a house, check everything out, as John said, and give some ideas to the seller on how to prepare his house for sale. If he's got, burnout light bulbs, that's pretty obvious. I don't like the what do you call it? The bulbs that are
energy efficient.
Yeah, I like the old incandescent bulbs. The late ones had all that mercury, and a lot of people really don't like those mercury lights. So I like to suggest, and then sometimes you go into the bathrooms and you got one light fixture here. I mean, you got 7 lights here, and there's a round one here and a square one and a curlicue one and a mercury one there. And I go, hey, King's X here, why don't you make all the light bulbs the same? Okay. And then the bulb covers. Sometimes the bulb covers are filled with bugs and everything. And say, why don't you drop the bulb cover down and clean it? I mean, I'm a little intimidating, but when a buyer comes along, they're going to be looking at the ceilings and see if there's any watermarks. Now, if there's any watermarks, better make sure that, you know, I would suggest to the seller to kills and paint that. You know what kills is K-L-Z, and then paint it. And then also provide a receipt of the HVAC system, because the structural and mechanical inspectors are not authorized to take off any plates to check for any cracked heat exchanges or anything like that. So have a recent HVAC system checked and a recent invoice saying the air conditioning heating units are working at proper temperatures. I don't care if they have 1 unit or 10 units, you know, depending on the size of the house. Pressure wash the driveways, sidewalks, and curb, and that's where it comes with the curb appeal. It's a play on words. Anyway, make sure that they pressure wash the curb, because I've seen a lot of times they'll pressure wash sideways and driveways. You got a dirty curb, and then even if I was selling this building, which I probably would never sell, but you check for the outsides for algae and, you know, things on the side that tell the owner. Even over here, we got algae on this building. I tell them to pressure wash the side of the building to make sure it's, you know, that it's clean looking. So, you know, when you go get listings, you can push them for as much as you can. If they're concerned about the physical condition, you can suggest to them inspectors and go from there and have those repairs done. Okay, the next one.
Wayne, I wanted to mention something on this inspection issue. I had an agent who I called and asked if there was had been an inspection conducted, and he said no. And I kept looking at the thing, and it had been off the market for 10 days, and so I called the buyer's agent for the last deal.
Oh, you're the listing agent.
No, I was the buyer's agent.
And you called the who?
I called the buyer's agent for the prior
Bust out.
transaction that busted out.
Oh,
And he or she sent me the inspection report. The agent had lied about the inspection report, so just be aware,
Yeah.
I'm in a transaction right now where I know the listing agent has got the inspection report, he told me that, but he can't find it. So, you know,
Even if you call
just
the
be aware
previous
that
one,
people aren't
they
always
send it.
telling you the truth and
Yeah.
think things through.
right.
More than
Now,
one way to skin a cat.
sometimes I've heard too, the listing agent and the buyer says, don't send me the copy of the inspection report. Now, let's just say, Pam, you're the listing agent, and you say, don't send me the inspection report. Oh my gosh, I've already sent it to you. Now, you're aware of it, and Robert's the owner. So you're aware of it, and Robert says, I don't want the listing, but you say, well, I'm aware of it, I have to send it to you because I have to disclose all the information. He may get irate with you, but you have to disclose things that you are aware of so you won't have the problem that Trish has. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, the next is, after my buyer completed his inspection, he sent the seller an amendment to ask for several repairs. Of course, you know, you use the amendment to contract, and there's lots of ways of negotiating repairs. One, don't do anything. Two, do all the repairs. Three, do some of the repairs and reduce the price. Four, pay purchaser's closing costs. Five,
No repairs.
combination of everything. That's what I said on number one. But, so there's lots of ways of negotiating repairs. Okay. After my buyer completed his inspection report, he sent the seller an amendment to ask for several repairs. The seller responded with his own amendment that stated he would complete one of the requested repairs and that the contract would terminate if the buyer didn't sign the amendment within 24 hours. Well, let's just say you have a 10-day option, and this is the 5th day. Can the seller terminate the contract if the buyer doesn't accept his amendment? No. Even though a buyer or seller can propose an amendment to the contract at any time, merely proposing an amendment to a contract or refusing to accept a proposed amendment does not give either party a unilateral right to terminate the existing contract. The contract is only changed after the parties sign the amendment signifying their agreement. Without a fully executed amendment, the original contract remains in effect as written. Keep in mind that the buyer purchase termination option that had not yet expired, the buyer could terminate the contract for any reason. I just happen to have an amendment to contract on the next page, And when you negotiate the repairs, whether you're paying purchasers closing costs or whatever I've already discussed, make sure you check item 7. Item 7 says buyer waives the unrestricted right to terminate this contract with the option fees paid.
What did you say, wait, repeat that again?
So turn the page
Yeah, I see the
and
page.
check 7.
What did you say prior to that?
I said after you negotiated repairs,
Kill the option period early.
then you're gonna
Oh,
terminate.
you're terminating it early, I got you, okay.
But, and make sure you put that in there, because you're the listing agent. I want you to make sure you control the repairs, not the buyer. Oh, the listing agent should control the repairs, and as soon as y'all agree on the amendment to contract, make sure you check number 7.
Okay, thank you.
And that's after listing the repairs at, I guess at number 9?
Well, whatever. You can put, well, you can put repairs, you can put,
Or number 2?
number, 2. I would start listing the repairs in number 2, and if there's any other thing, you put in there other modifications.
Okay.
There must be other modifications. They could say, oh, we're not going FHA, we're not going conventional, we've decided to go VA, or a certain, you want to make sure that everything is disclosed to everybody. I've seen realtors send me stuff on modifications for they're dotting i's and crossing t's, and I said, that's fine. Anyway.
Yeah, they wrote in there, you wanted to leave the car in the garage because it's a classic Porsche.
Right.
The guy's initial is okay, they'll raise the price by 50 grand and send it back.
Well, everything is negotiable. Okay, so the next one is third-party financing. The TREC 1901 and TREC 40-7 includes language allowing the clients or authorized lenders and title companies to deliver copies of closing disclosures documents to you. In other words, the third-party financing, you don't have to get, special documents prepared. Well, let's just say you're negotiating with, and you're not using the TREC forms. Then it says right here, but if your client isn't using TREC forms, if he's using a contract drafted by an attorney, then you can use the TAR's authorization to furnish Tiller RISPA integrated disclosures to our 2516 form to ensure you receive the documents on your client's behalf. Note that each broker in the transaction should use a separate form. Okay. So, prior to that third-party financing that came into effect, I think it was in September of last year, maybe January, you had to use that authorization. What are available mortgage options for buyers? I'll just go over this briefly. You have a fixed rate mortgage, and then you have an adjustable rate mortgage, and you have an interest-only jumbo loan. So those are the things, and I'll let you guys read that on your own. Of course, the adjustable, the interest rates could change. The jumbo is interest-only, and the fixed mortgage rate is fixed principal and interest. Of course, you can have a non-escrow loan, and if you do that, if a buyer decides to pay his own taxes and insurance, the mortgage company may charge you a fee for that. For not
20% down.
Well, no, let's just,
That too.
I don't know what the requirements are of each mortgage company, but let's just say you put X number of dollars down and you want to pay your own taxes and insurance. They sometimes charge you a fee. Like, say you put 10% down and you want to pay your own taxes and insurance, they'll charge you a non-escrow fee.
Are there still first-home buyer special rates for first-home buyer?
I don't know, you'd have to talk to the mortgage company.
Sometimes FHA.
You'll have to check with the mortgage companies. They offer different deals at different times, and I'll tell you, when it comes to mortgage, just go upstairs and then ask them a
3.5%
question.
on FHA.
Right, it's 3.5, it's 0 for VA, and it's 3.5 for FHA, and it's 5% down for conventional. But when you're talking to a buyer, let's just say, and I've gone over this over and over and over, let's just say you're talking to a buyer that's buying a $100,000 house, and you say it's conventional at 5%, that's $5,000. Are there any closing costs?
Plus closing costs.
Right, and the closing costs will run you another nickel. So 100,000 costs you 10, 200,000 costs you 20.
Have you seen many 80/20s?
So-
Yeah, no, I don't want it.
This is another thing I want to bring up about E&O insurance. It says selling your own property. Here's what you should know about your E&O. Many real estate brokers and agents handle transactions in which they are selling their own properties. Now, if you sell your own property, let's just say some agents here own 3 or 4 or 5, 10, 15 different rent houses, they're going to have to provide a seller's disclosure because that's not one of the 11 exceptions. Most errors and omissions insurance policies define homeownership as having 10% or greater ownership interest in the property, while some E&O policies exclude coverage when you are selling your own property. Most companies will offer coverage if the following items are in your file. In other words, if you have, make sure that you have these items for E&O insurance. The date the buyer had the home inspection, home warranty, seller's disclosure, and state-approved forms. If a buyer refuses the home inspection and home warranty, some companies will allow a waiver. But try to get the seller to provide a home warranty so that you can have your E&O insurance. If a buyer refuses home inspection, some companies will allow a waiver. It's good practice to have the items above included in all files, but not just selling your own property. If you do, some E&O carriers may lower your deductible if you have these 4 items, or waive it completely. And sometimes deductibles are, I think in this office they have E&O insurance, but I think the deductible is either $5,000 or $10,000. But you'll have to check with Jennifer or Betty on what the deductibles are, because I don't know. Those insurance policies expire, and sometimes they'll say, well, I can give it to you for 5. Sometimes I can give it for 10. But make sure you have these items right here, because you may be forced to pay your deductible if you don't. Real estate laws will take effect January the 1st. That's just terms here. The changes, several rules, regulations, procedures, Texas Real Estate Commission have been created and revised, including changes to certain definitions and terms. For example, salesperson is now a sell agent, increasing the number of CE hours required to renew a license 15 to 18. Of course, I'm excluded. Me and about 3 other agents in this office are excluded from continuing education because we were broke before 1990. I've been a broker since 1968, so I was excluded. I had to prove that I was in an area less than 250,000, so I lived in Sugar Land, and I had a license for the last 10 years, and there was another exception. But anyway, I'm excluded, so y'all can take all the hours you want.
Yeah, that's just not fair.
This is not fair. Well, you got your license, and so some guy said in 1868. Well, then you can be excluded. A new rule allowing Chuck to determine the text and delivery of consumer notices, including information about broker services and consumer protection notice. This change resulted in revisions of these notices effective February 2016. The new rule that Chuck cannot increase education requirements by more than 3 hours per license renewal. So that's why it's gone up to 15.8. So next time it's probably going to go to 21. Information about broker services. I want to go over this one more time. I've gone over about 10 times. Where does your name go?
The bottom.
The bottom. I don't care if you're with a supervisor or without a supervisor, your name goes on the bottom. And where does the seller or buyer sign?
They don't.
The initial.
Hey, excuse me.
Stick it out.
Excuse me, boy. Okay, that was a trick question.
Maybe after the 10th, 11th time we get it.
Okay, here's some little quickies about the Code of Ethics. Which of the following realtors are required to keep in special accounts separated from their own funds? Escrow, security deposits, trust funds. You can put commissions. You can give me the commission. True or false? The Texas Real Estate Commission also enforces the Realtor Code of Ethics. False. According to the code, who of the following is required to give consent to have a for sale sign on the property? The seller. True. Social media channels that limit the amount of information they can display on are exempt from the requirements to disclose a realtor's firm name. True or false? An anonymous person can file an ethics complaint. True. And then a little bit more on the answers on the second page. We'll go to the next page. Do you have to pay compensation offered in MLS to a non-participant? I see a lot of times in the closed transactions of MLS, you'll see down at the bottom the listing agent and then a non-MLS agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna go over that. I'd always say, make the deal. Let's just say you hadn't had an offer in 6 months, and a non-MLS brings you a contract for double the sales price. Make the deal. I was being a little facetious, but make the deal. My seller just entered into a contract with the buyer whose broker doesn't participate in my MLS. You know, I was just curious. Is Galveston part of HAR?
Some,
They got their own MLS.
they have their own MLS, but
I was just thinking,
a lot of
let's just say you
agents that are
sold
here
one
that-
of their listings in Galveston, say a high-rise or a lot or whatever. According to this, you may not get paid unless, I'll go a little bit further. The buyer or broker says I must pay him compensation offered with my MLS listing when the sale closes. Is that true? No. The listing broker's offers compensation to MLS only applies to other MLS participants and cannot be enforced by a non-participant. You and the non-participating broker can negotiate other compensating using the registration agreement between broker and owner. And so if you're dealing in Galveston and you're not part of the MLS, I just happen to have something for you right here, just for your convenience. And you can read it over and fill it out and all that. Most of the time, I would think most realtors got common sense. They're going to cooperate with you. If they don't, make sure you have this so you can get compensated. Will you take the,
But Wayne, it seems like I always need this form when I'm doing a rental.
no,
No,
that's a different
Never.
one. You've never seen it
that's a
before.
full-page one.
yeah, this is only one page is agreement between brokers. This is agreement between, this is not the right, this is not, you're using the wrong one.
Oh, no, this is broker.
This
owner.
is registration. It's not agreement between brokers. Right, and you know how to fill that thing out, don't you, for your benefit?
Yeah,
Okay, at the bottom of that agreement between brokers on the lease.
yeah, this isn't the one I'm talking about.
Right.
Sorry, never mind.
That's okay, I know.
But the other one,
I know. Make sure at the bottom, I went over that in the last class, that you put it in your favor about commissions and renewal fees. And if the other agent doesn't get that, well then who gets a renewal fee at the second year? You do.
Wonder how many agents end up paying that?
What's that?
Wonder how many listing agents end up paying that?
Well, I've talked to, you ever heard of the guy we call Superman here, Bartholomew? He had to pay, or his owner had to pay. Another agent in this office that I can't repeat, but I put it in my favor because she says, oh, you prepare all the paperwork, because I don't know how to do that, or I don't want to do that.
Shit, now you're all this.
Sure. So I prepared all the paperwork in my favor. Now, if someone asked me, says, on a lease deal, I thought the listing agent's supposed to prepare the lease.
Yep.
Everything is negotiable. Who prepares what? I know that I was talking to one of the agents in the office, and they said, I want to prepare all the contracts, whether I'm the buyer's agent or whether I'm the listing agent, because I want control. I said,
who
okay.
said that, Wayne Russell? I'm sorry. Better not be a
That sounds like you.
A control freak. Okay. Will the sales agents actually sell? Let's see. Oh, this is when you're interviewing someone to be, say, an assistant. And I'll let you read everything in details. Make sure that they listen, that they don't do all the talking. You want to do the talking when you're interviewing, unless they have a specific question to answer. Do they ask questions, save, if you're interviewing for a job or something, ask your questions at the appropriate time. You know their goals. Do they do the grunt work? This is a lot of grunt work in this business, whether it's mail outs, door knocking, cold calling.
Really?
It's a lot of grunt work.
Oh,
And somebody has open houses, and they always complain because no one shows up because it's raining, or it's a bad day, or whatever. But open houses, I've made some money, but let me tell you something. When a seller says, "What are you going to do to sell my house?"
Open house.
Open house. All right. Well, if I'm a realtor, I'm going to say, "Why are you having an open house?"
To invite nosy
What day do
neighbors.
you want to have an open house?
All neighbors, nosy
Let me tell you the
neighbors.
reason why realtors have open houses.
To get buyers.
To get buyers for
Exactly,
other houses.
Exactly. There you go.
and to satisfy the seller.
And pacify the seller.
Yes.
2-hour job, but you satisfy the seller.
You pacified the seller, and you're finding buyers for other houses. And that's what happened to me when I had open house, that I
Yep.
finally got lucky enough to sell. That if you have nothing to do and you have no buyers, no listings or something, then you go ahead and do whatever it takes to have open houses and see what happens and roll the dice that afternoon. I've been in open houses where the agent was sleeping. So I mean, you know.
That was my problem.
And I've had open houses where the TV was blaring, you know, they're watching a football game or a baseball game or something like that.
I'm kidding.
And
That's okay.
so,
Depends on whether
I'm
they're
just
making
learning.
money.
right.
Just kidding.
It is still recording.
Right, oh, someone knocked at the door, mute.
No.
But, you know, so, and if you're gonna have an open house, you might do this, you might, depending on the subdivision, I didn't, you know, I'm not telling you where the subdivision's going, or if it is, it's Sugar Land, Missouri City, whatever, and I know you're supposed to have soliciting licenses and all that, but you might pass out little flyers and knock on doors, say, I'm having an open house. If you're real, are you a real nosy neighbor? I mean, if you would like to see the house, I'm having it open this afternoon. And by the way, I know when you're planning to sell, so here's my card and here's a flyer for this house. So see how good a job I do. You know, I mean, do that, say, the day before, or do that the morning of. Say you have an open house from 2 to 4. Go get your flyers and knock on doors. And a lot of people go, I don't want to knock on doors. I don't want to do any cold calling. I don't want to do nothing. I just want to stay here and collect the money and take floor. Okay, well, follow the big producers.
Stop, Wayne.
Follow the big producers in the office. What do they do? And when they're on the reports of, you get monthly sales reports of the top producers of individuals, and see what they do.
Were open houses, let's say, 30 years ago? I mean, was it a better idea back then?
Let me tell you
Before the
something,
internet.
John. Let me tell you something. 30 years ago, I was not a realtor. I was not part of MLS, and I sold my own properties. I had both sides of the transaction. And I didn't care about trophies, and I didn't care about medals, and I didn't care. All I wanted to care about is one thing: money.
Wayne.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching. So I was an independent broker. In 1968, I was an independent broker. I dealt in acreage and commercial properties and went out and tried to get listings on acreage. One of my first deals I sold, and what I would do is go down to the city to see where the city planning was extending roads. So I said, you know what, I want to look at the Northwest Freeway. I went to the highway department, got right-of-ways and diagrammatics, and they go, what the heck is that? I went out to the city planning department and say, I want a planning map to see where roads are going to be extended from one point to another. So they had dotted lines on proposed roads, just like they have at Belfort and around Alliana. Those were proposed roads at one time until a developer came in and put the roads in. So I went out to northwest part of town before the Northwest Freeway was just barely under construction, and I went further north because I figured, you know, I've sold a few tracts on the Northwest Freeway, but I went up further, and this lady just inherited a bunch of property, about 120 acres, and West Road was coming through, and Gessner was coming through. I said, wow, what an intersection.
4 corners.
That's right, 4 corners. Service stations, restaurants, strip centers, blah, 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 blah. Of course, there's no utilities. It's just land, okay? So it was, I listed the property, and I just happened to know an investor that was interested in buying it. And I knocked on his door and I says, hey, we went to Brendan's. This is my brochure. I got a napkin. I wrote down, you know where the Northwest Freeway is? He says, yes, Wayne, I know where the Northwest Freeway is. He says, up here, here's Gessner. He says, yeah, I know where that is. And here's West Road. I was drawing on a piece of paper on a napkin. He says, yeah, I know where that is. How'd you like to buy that property right there for $3,000 an acre? 10 years interest only, 10% down, and 10 years of P&I. Because you see, when I was going, I knew what buyers wanted. Of course, the tax changes have changed since the 80s, but I knew that interest only was a good deal because most of that interest was tax deductible. So he says, I'll buy it, Wayne. You know, so I had to draw up a contract, 1-page contract, not 8 pages.
Goes for the Davis.
No earnest, no, just $1,000 or $2,000 earnest money, no option money. And we closed it, and he put the group together, and of course he wanted the fee.
Buyer,
You wanted a fee?
Yeah.
collect it from those investors.
You want to collect the fee from you?
Yes.
We wanted part of your commissions,
Right.
Well, you did both sides.
doesn't matter.
So you're gonna have to make a decision from time to time on who you're dealing with, MLS, non-MLS, realtors, buyers. Sometimes on new construction, the buyer will say, hey, I wanna buy this $1 million house. And I'm gonna put your name down. And the commission is $30,000. And he comes to you and says, you know what? I think someone offered me a deal that I'd get $15,000 back. Now, what would you do? What'd you do, John, if
Well,
the guy?
well, number one, you gotta look at your listing agreement.
No, this is new construction.
Oh, and new construction.
And the buyer comes to you, John, and goes, hey, John.
I got the answer.
Oh.
Take it, do it, take it, make the deal.
Yeah, I would make the deal because I would also wanna grow the relationship.
Yeah,
Because the deal doesn't stop with that deal.
yeah.
The deal needs
Right.
to continue.
But you're not gonna be buying another
Right
house for another
answer.
10 or 20 years. Who's buying
I know,
another
but
one?
what I'm saying is that, you know, I've sold a lot of properties in the past on acreage deals when I got both sides of the transaction and they didn't get anything. And in some deals, they wanted part of the pie. So you have to make a decision in this business where you want to take part or
Zero.
nothing.
Yeah, take part.
Don't get greedy.
So, but I've sold both
Just
sides
tell
of
them,
the.
well, let me talk to my other couple of buyers, I'll let you know.
Right, and I just closed on a warehouse that Nana and I worked on, and we got both sides of the transaction, and the buyer didn't ask for anything. It was a great deal. Now, when you're working with realtors in the office, referral fees are negotiable. And they range from X% to X%. But we sold both sides of the transaction. And there's a nice little payday, thanks to Nyla, because she knew the people. But,
Property call.
just a property call. That was a very good property call. Now, I've been on property in the past where sold, you know, this guy walked in and says, I have 3 rent houses, I'm gonna sell them all away. I go, okay, how much are they worth? So I said, here, sit down right here. And I pulled them up, gave it to him, and he goes, okay, I'll call you when I'm ready. I sold one house one here, one house next year. So, I mean, you can make money on floor.
Last
But-
week I did floor, 2 rentals in one bale worth 6,200.
Total?
6,200, and both closed today.
Wow,
One payday.
awesome.
Property was good.
Right.
Yeah. But most of the year it's bad.
Right. So you roll the dice, and on floor, you can take floor, and you're probably, I would say, 20% of the time. Now, years ago, when Remax was over on the other side, and before we had 10,000 agents in Sugar Land, you can make enough money on floor to pay your rent.
Exactly.
And I remember Andy was telling me that he was next door. He moved 3 times and didn't even have to get a truck. He had a 2-wheel. But anyway, he moved over to the old
He's
building,
gonna need a truck now.
and then he moved to this building.
Boiling torch.
But his first floor was a $400,000 sale, $12,000.
Wow.
His first,
We never get that lucky.
Yeah.
right. So I mean, floors. Okay. We got a little
floor is
sidetracked. Okay,
Hey, Wayne,
and
can I
then
tell
move
you
forward.
something? You're much better when that thing's turned off.
It's on.
Oh, it's on? You turned it back on again?
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just having some
Because I
fun
like
today.
it when
I'll
you-
edit that out.
I like it when you add lib.
No, we won't. We're just same old, same
I
old.
like it when you add lib and you add more.
Well,
That's
thanks.
how we learn.
That's,
So.
thank you. Now, we went over to have the house inspected for the seller, and if the seller doesn't want to do that and knock out repairs, then you may be faced with the buyer's inspector, and sometimes buyer's inspectors are tough inspectors, and they're deal killers.
Yes, they are.
And so if it would be wise if you already had the house pre-inspected and disclose it in your seller's disclosure and put it on docs underneath your MLS, that we have an inspection and they've done X things. And even though Robert mentioned that, do we hire an inspector, do we hire a professional to do certain things, or can we do something on our own? Use your own judgment. And if they weren't properly installed correctly, then probably the buyer's inspector will catch it, and then you're gonna have to have a professional install those GFIs. But anyway, this is a list of inspectors. Now, a lot of realtors will look at this and go, oh, structural mechanical, thank you very much. They had the house inspected and blah, blah, blah. And just before closing, I'd just walk up to them and say, how's the deal going? Oh, we had the house inspected. Did you have the house inspected for termites? What's that? So right down on the bottom, they got a list of for termites. In other words, when you go out and get listings, try to go on the outside of your house to check to see if the mulch is 2 inches above the weed holes or below the weed holes. If they just wanted to make their gardens look really nice and they pile in 15 loads of mulch and they got the weed poles covered about 6 inches, you're going to have termites. So make sure that and make sure they have the downspouts and the splash guards, and because just one little thing on there will be on the inspection list. So just the less things on the inspection list, the better. Check the house over inside and out. Just don't go in there and get a listing and say thank you very much, goodbye. You know, try to give some helpful hints on the inside as well as the outside. But make sure the tree limbs are not blowing against the roof or the fascia boards, because that's going to deteriorate the roof. So make sure that the limbs are trimmed back 2 foot from the house and the fascia or the shingles. So
and then I would say we need to keep a constant communication with our buyer, for representing the buyer in that case, because I mean they get freaked out when they see that inspection report. I mean, especially if it's one of their first homes.
right.
Any texts that come in, you answer them right away.
Right.
Because the moment you don't answer a couple, that's like, oh, there must be something wrong.
Exactly.
And then
Communication needs to be.
the buyer, you know, it's really strange. The seller or buyer, when you have the inspection report, expects you to know plumbing, electrical, and everything. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We're just realtors. We don't make loans. We don't do repairs. We don't do inspections. We don't do termite inspections. We don't do structural and mechanical. But the buyer expects you to know all the answers in the inspection report. Well, sometimes you have to get advice from the inspector to explain, because he's probably done this work and then he became an inspector. So, you know, when you're answering questions on the inspections report, make sure you know what you're doing.
And I mean, there should be things that we should be able to tell them. You know, they're like, well, what does this GFCI stand for? You know, we should be able to kind of give them.
I understand that. I understand that. Okay, now also too, let's just say on the inspection report you have on FHA loans and FHA loans and conventional loans. On the termite inspection report, if you have conducive conditions for termite infestation, you'll have to have treated on FHA, but not on conventional. That's why I like to put in MLS, conventional or cash. Because FHA, the reason why they go FHA, because they can qualify for more money. And that goes up to X dollars. I'm not exactly sure. $275, $250 on FHA. Does anyone know that?
Next question again.
How much FHA can qualify for? What's the max they can qualify for?
Or it's 400.
I thought it was
417,
yeah.
417.
417?
That's
417.
That's VA. There's not FHA.
FHA, I think it's in the threes. I just did one. Probably in the upper threes.
Now, let's just say you're working with a buyer, as John was talking about, and you have to know everything about the inspection report, from electrical to plumbing and everything else. When you recommend an inspector, don't recommend an inspector. Get this sign right here, the inspection information. It says, I've underlined it, this firm does not recommend any particular inspector and does not warrant the quality of inspector's inspection. In other words, here's a list, but I do not recommend anyone on the list. And if you want to Google inspectors for the Sugarland, Houston area, you can. Most of these will be on the list.
There's a website on the bottom of this that tells you where they're all at. You go to them and list them.
Yeah.
I usually use the word guide. I never use recommend. not even suggest.
Right.
I can always say, I can guide you to certain resources.
Right, but then this inspection information will clear things up, say that, you know, here's a list, and we do not recommend, and they sign it. Okay, last but not least, mortgage rates for mortgage buyer Federal me said the 30-year fixed rate loan slipped from 3.58 to 3.59. I tell you what, back in the 80s, when I came out here in Sugar Land in '83, the interest rates were 14%, 15, 16. It was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
but how much were the homes?
Well, the homes, now in retrospect, the homes were about, a Perry home in First Colony was about 125, 135. When I came out here, so, and I used my commission and had some extra money,
Like a
so.
3,000 square foot house, about?
Well, this was 3,100 square foot and it was going for 135. And I figured the homes would probably, you know, it would enhance the value of 10% per year, so in 10 years it'd be worth 230. Well, 10 years in the early 90s is worth less. In 92 was worth less than they were 9 years ago across the board.
Because the oil industry,
Now that home today, it just recently sold for about $250, but they put a pool in, they put a shower, they put a
So
bathroom
not
in.
too much.
So it doubled in 20 years, that's 5% return. But it went down and then it came back up. It's just like the stock market, which I don't participate in. Because I bought in the NASDAQ in 2000, in the NASDAQ, I came in some money, I said, well, I'll just try the stock market instead of land. So I put all my money in the stock market in the year 2000. Well, NASDAQ, and I want to go in NASDAQ, so it was 5,000.
Yeah.
And so everyone says it's going to go to 10. I says, all right.
It's 5,000 right now.
Well,
As
it's
of
only
today.
about 4,600 or 4,800
As of
today,
today.
so it hasn't gained anything in the last 16 years. Because just prior to that, 1999, I bought some Mundernet, never forget that. Put in 500, and I said, I'm going to sell it within 90 days or 6 months, and I got $800. And I go, man, forget real estate. I want to stay in the stock market. I haven't bought any more in the stock market. I got out of the stock market when NASDAQ was 3,500, and everyone says, you're crazy.
I'm still there.
I said, so it went down to about 1,800, and I was laughing at them. Thank you very much and having a good day.